to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here once again, as always, with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, we've just lost to Liverpool 2-0. First of all, how are you doing? Second of all, I guess we'll talk about the game.
Yeah, I'm doing all right, actually. Best to say goodbye to this. It's going tomorrow, 11 a.m. sharp. I'm booked in. So
Mate.
always, regardless of what happened today, that's something to look forward to. So yeah, for all the people listening on to the Spotify or whatever, of course, referring to the fact I'm about to get a haircut. Very excited about it too. You're tossing, and what are you going for, mate? You going for the Steve Harrington or is it the skin fade? What are we opting for?
I think I've got to go for the skin fade, mate. To be honest, it's around the ears that's really frustrating.
Yeah,
and I think because I try to grow it out long on the top, and then the back's generally a skin fade anyway. The way it's grown, like it's so long on the top, you can't. Those who are on the video, you can't really see because I've kind of tried to put it down with some wax just so it's presentable for the podcast. But it's not as long on the back and sides, so it's in a really awkward stage. So I think I'm gonna have to go for the skin fade. But I'm booked in for Tuesday, man, and I can't wait.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Absolutely, but I think we should get on to talking about Villa because before this game, obviously, I don't think anyone expected to win, Dan. But looking at some of the results, West Ham drew today, looked like they could have won. But then obviously they got a result against Chelsea a few days ago, which puts them in a very good position. Watford managed to lose to Chelsea the other day as well, which was great for us. But again, we can't keep relying on these teams losing. I've got to say, I've listened to the last podcast back, and it was kind of difficult because we're a bit sort of numb to it, and with how Villa are, it's just difficult to talk about football when we're this bad and we're in the position that we're in. But generally, Dan, I thought we played quite well today, and if anything, I'm kind of left disappointed more at the fact we didn't take our chances today. Usually, I'm walking away from these games thinking, well, we've not laid a glove on them. We've not even tried to compete. But Villa, for the most part, did very well today.
Yeah, and I think this is. I don't want to keep using the word disappointed, but I think confusing is probably the right one, mate. Because like I watched like the first kind of few minutes. We had that corner early on. I'm sure you remember, and we were pressing Liverpool at Anfield, right? And that's great. Like that's what you want to see, man. That's what you and I were talking on the podcast last week about Dean Smith not fulfilling his promise of saying that we're going to go toe to toe with every side in the league and play every game to win. And we showed that intent. And we pressed Liverpool at Anfield, but we didn't press Sheffield United at home.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of things which have been frustrating us all season because we always show up in these games against the top six. And I thought we were going to get a hammer in, to be honest with you, mate. I was just sat back and before the game, I was just like, I think it could be 4 because I thought Liverpool were going to be out for vengeance after what City did to them the other night. It's their first game back at Anfield after winning the Premier League. All eyes are on them. They would just want to make sure that the City game was just a little blip, loss of focus, and they're back on it now. But they weren't really on the boil. And yeah, as you said, I was happy that we were creating chances, and whilst we weren't taking them in the other games, we hadn't been creating the chances that we were then not to take. Do you know what I mean? So even just seeing the Villa opening up sides like that, and we, in the first half, we were sort of catching on the break, and they showed a little bit of susceptibility. And yeah, I think I was slightly confused by the lineup to start with. To be honest with you, there were just little elements here and there, why I thought we were basically nailed on to see Elmo at right back and that sort of thing. I liked the midfield, but no, we started the game pretty positively, and I mean that sort of carried on all the way through, didn't it?
It did, and I think it was only really until Liverpool scored where we saw Villa kind of deflate and go back to the Villa that we've seen since returning, and even before lockdown. I think it's Villa, we had our chances. We looked, comfortable on the counter-attack. I don't want to say we looked amazing. We got ourselves in some good positions, but definitely didn't capitalise. I'd say the one thing, my one issue is that we kind of lack the directness that you need when you're on a fast break like that. It should be 1 or 2 passes, boom, boom, shoot. But you've still got your El Ghazi who wants to kind of stop with the ball and wait and put the cross in, things like that. And I don't think Grealish particularly made too many great decisions in the final third. There was a few opportunities where I felt like he just released the ball even half a second too late to the likes of Anwar Trez. Even Jota, who came on, I was delighted to see Jota come on. I know we mentioned that last week, albeit didn't really have much of an impact on the game at the time. But I think the thing to say about it, Dan, is it was an encouraging performance against the best team in the world right now. And that's what we have to take away from this, because these kind of games, even though you've got to fight and scrap for every single point that's available when you're in a position like we are, and even Watford have managed to get a win at Anfield against Liverpool, you kind of reside yourself thinking, right, this is a free hit, you've got to keep the goal difference down. So at 1-0 I was thinking, well, we don't really look like scoring here, let's just try and reduce the deficit. And it's unfortunate we conceded the second goal. I think the second goal was a much poorer goal to concede than the first one. Interestingly, on the personnel that you mentioned, I was very happy to see Dean, even though Sky Sports had it as a 4-4-2, essentially, with Grealish as a sort of centre forward. It was a 4-2-3-1. You had McGinn and Louise acting as a double pivot at the base of the midfield. And for me, I think that works really well. And albeit we can't be too picky about the wingers who we've got, I think the system was spot on. Not necessarily the personnel. And I want to give a rare shout out to Neil Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. He played really well today, and like these are the positions that I picked up before the game. I thought Salah up against Neil and Mane up against Ezri was just going to be a straight maul-in, to be honest with you. So I thought, whilst Ezri is obviously a good defender, like out on the wing, I thought Mane was just going to do him for pace. And it was kind of an advert, if anything, like if you're looking at it from a Liverpool perspective, on the fact that they need another player to be able to sub into that front three. Because I like Divock Origi. I'm a big fan of his. He's given the goals that he's scored, he's got his right to be a Liverpool legend. He's scored the goals that won them the Champions League last season, if we want to speak objectively. But it was that front three wasn't operating on full capacity, and Mane and Salah weren't sort of, it wasn't as fluid, it wasn't as manic, it wasn't as threatening as we've seen at many points this season. And I thought Neil did a really good job up against Mo Salah for pretty much the entirety of the game. I think, for Mane's goal, he sort of, I'm not going to say he falls asleep, mate. And I know people, the Neil Taylor brigade will be out to blame him for that one. But to be honest with you, man, I think after we've done so much defending at Anfield, I mean, let's be honest, given the way that we've defended for the vast majority of this season, we were never going to go to Anfield and keep a clean sheet, were we?
No, absolutely.
And so, it was going to happen at some point. I mean, Neil Taylor's good, man, but, he's not as good as the players that he's playing against. And so, eventually when Mane scores, I mean, yeah, he could probably be a little bit more alert. And if you are to single out a player to blame, it's probably him. But I can't give him, I can't fault him too much for that, mate. But no, I think the amount of chances that we had was potentially I'm not going to say our downfall, but I don't think we were prepared.
No.
And I don't think that what we'd worked on in the week was necessarily on converting the amount of, because we counter-attacked pretty well, I thought, until we got to the final third. We built the attacks quite nicely, but then when it came to the cross or the final ball or the shot, it was just lacking, to be honest with you. And the cohesion between the front three in those situations, obviously it was but the three most forward players, it just wasn't really there. And I don't think we potentially set up to have had as many chances as we did. But no, I mean, look, it's one of those where it's frustrating. Again, it's a game against a top six side, which I'm not going to say bottled, because it's not like we had the lead and we let it slip, but it was, and it sounds crazy thinking that these guys have won 17 Premier League home games in a row. They're forget about who your favourites are. If you want to talk statistics, they're on track. If they go on and win 5 of the next 6 games, they're statistically the best side the Premier League has ever seen, if you want to talk in the amount of wins and the amount of points amassed. But today, that they definitely weren't the best Premier League, the side the Premier League has ever seen. They weren't the best side. They were far from the best Liverpool side I've seen. And there were moments, and I think we were just let down by unfortunately, I don't like scapegoating players, mate, but like the quality of Trezeguet. Trezeguet is a player that's just not up to it, mate. I thought that there were so many moments today where he just showed that he seems to lack the know-how in the final third and the crossing ability or whatever, just to give us the chance to get the goal. And I think that's, unfortunately, it's perhaps the fact that we didn't go into half-time 1-0 up or weren't 1-0 up before Liverpool scored is just down to the quality of players and just the fact that there wasn't any cohesion once we got into those final stages.
Yeah, I think, again, I kind of look at the players who are available, and El Ghazi by no means had a great game. Trez is Trez. I thought he did very well defensively. That was a much more well-rounded performance, I'd say, from Trez. You know, he certainly what they worked on in the week in terms of, you know, launching the counter-attack and having the wingers kind of tuck in with either McGinn or Louise. I think that worked very well. But, you know, Trez is he's paid to score goals, create goals, put crosses in the box. That should be his bread and butter. But I think if you look, and anyone who listens to the podcast will know I'm Keenan Davis's biggest fan. But I don't think any team can go to Anfield with Keenan Davis leading the line and expect to win, or let alone score a goal. And, you know, by no means am I. Well, I guess I am slating Keenan a bit, but it's
not really.
He's not that type of player. And, you know, I got very happy and upset almost at the same time when I saw Keenan almost body Van Dijk early on, because I thought, wow, I'm missing this. But, you know, when you kind of set up like that, it's anything that happened in the game that was positive is just an added bonus. And I hate to, because we kind of sound like we're dead men walking, saying things like this, but you have to take the positives from this game, Dan. You really do. Especially when you've got a red hot, pardon the pun, Manchester United team coming to Villa Park on Monday. Like, there's plenty for them to work on Thursday, until that time.
Yeah.
That they can do and improve, because, to be honest, that Liverpool defence is light years ahead of Manchester United's defence. You know, Bournemouth, I don't want to say they were hard done by. Manchester United scored 5 worldies, but David De Gea had an absolute nightmare for both of Bournemouth's goals. So if you can create the chances like we created today, you can possibly score 1 or 2 against Manchester United.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Look, I think, you're right, mate. You know, Keenan is a good player, and I like him, but he's not cut out for the games like today, unfortunately. And it was a strange one to see him starting up front, because I thought, given the way that we were playing on the counter attacks, I thought that Samatta was perhaps the most logical option, because he can stretch that back four. He can get in behind those players. Keenan is, you know, he's not going to be any one of that back four for pace. But Samagol has already scored at Anfield this season. Let's not forget, in the Champions League. Keenan still waiting for that first Premier League goal, but, you know, if we're being honest, then, you know, today was never going to be the day that he got that against, you know, and that's not me criticising Keenan. That's just the fact that he's up against, you know, again, you know, the Ballon d'Or will tell you Virgil van Dijk is the second best player in the world. And it's so hard to go and score against, you know, because you've got Alisson in goal, and, you know, that back four is tough enough as it is. But no, I thought we should have seen Samatta. And look, I think, you know, I'm going to sort of reference to fellow guys from Heart of the Holte. I'm not quite as optimistic as Cal, but I'm quite as pessimistic as Dom. Yeah. And I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. I think, again, we've been let down by game management. I think, mate, it was infuriating for me. Liverpool made 3 substitutes, right? And it was Henderson. This midway through the second half, they brought on Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Firmino. Yeah. And we all know that Firmino, they made a big deal of it. Firmino hasn't scored a home goal in the Premier League this season. But what he does and the result showed you after he was on the pitch is he's the system. He's the glue. He comes on and suddenly the Mane and Salah, they start coming into the game a bit more, and he's got that hold of play. And whilst he doesn't get all the goals and assists in the world, his value to the Liverpool side has never been better demonstrated than by today's game. And the fact that we watched those three players come on, Hendo, who we all know, again, divides opinion, but his role as a leader and his ability to motivate and lead Liverpool sides to those gritty, grind-out victories, which, let's not forget, it's Man City that do the thrashings in this league. Yeah.
Liverpool,
if you look back through their results this season, it's that they just find a way to win. It's
it's tiresome, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. It's very rare that Liverpool put 5 or 6 past the side anymore. I know they put 4 past Crystal Palace the other week, but they obviously have the capability to do that. But it's not quite with the regularity that people think. And when they brought those 3 players on, and we failed to react to that. I know we don't have a wealth of players on the bench, but as I said, when they're basically changing, they've got a 3-man midfield, and they changed 2 of those players. Bring some extra energy into that midfield. McGinn had probably the best game that we've seen in play since the restart, but he wasn't setting the world up right. But bring Connor on, bring Samatta on to stretch that back 4 and give you an out ball on the counter attack. Bring Elmo on just for that little bit of attacking, diversity, and the fact that we've got a crosser on the pitch. And we failed to do that, mate. And we went 1-0 down, and that's when Samatta came on, and that's when Holte came on. But by the time you're 1-0 down at Anfield, mate, you're not going to come back into that, are you?
No, and I'm completely in agreement with you. I think the difficult thing is, and obviously we're not the ones who get paid to make these decisions, Villa were competing and were very much probably on top at the time of the substitutions. And it's that kind of stick or twist where do you gamble while you're still on top and hope that the fresh legs of like a Jota or a Lansbury or a Horahan or someone gives you that extra like 10% that you need. But, they bring 3 on, as you say, 2 are midfielders, and it's no coincidence that it suddenly started swinging in their favour. They were having much more of the possession. When we did hit them on the counter attack, they were that much quicker to get it back down our end, and the writing was on the wall really from that point. I thought we defended really well, and it is a shame, and I hate to describe a game like that, but it was, because I can't help but feel like we were hard done by. But as you say, it's decisions like that which I think inevitably cost the game. And I think as well, absolutely no disrespect to Divock Origi, as you mentioned before, Liverpool legend, and he'd walk into comfortably 17 teams in the Premier League, I'd say, as a starting striker. But when Divock Origi is starting up against you, you're going to know that you're going to you're going to be let off at least 1 or 2 times. And obviously it wasn't Origi who ended up scoring, it was Mane, but Villa just didn't take their chances when they were on top, and ultimately that's what cost them. But even though United are very good, Dan, I'm left feeling somewhat optimistic after this.
Yeah, mate. Look, it's not the end of the world. It's frustrating, but Liverpool at Anfield, man, that's a game that we should never be winning. For me, the next game is, if you ask me who I'd rather play at the moment out of Liverpool at United, I'd say Liverpool. United look red hot, and there is fragility in that back line, as we saw. Bournemouth were able to put 2 past United, but United was still able to score 5, and that's their attack is going to be so much harder to handle. But if Els is listening, he'll kill me for this because he's a big Harry Maguire fan. But 80 million for Harry Maguire is ridiculous money.
Absolutely.
Virgil was 75. I don't need to say any more than that. And him and De Gea are shipping goals between the two of them at the moment. And look, but again, mate, it doesn't matter how many mistakes Harry Maguire and David De Gea make. You still got to find a player that's going to put the ball in the net. Yeah. Your Bournemouth have still got Josh Kings and those sort of players. We need to we need to find the player, because they can make as many mistakes in the world, but we've still got to capitalise on them. And I mean, Liverpool made mistakes today. They let us in and gave us scope to counter-attack far too many times than Klopp would have liked, but we weren't able to find the players or the combinations to put the ball in the net. And so, yeah, look, it's not. I'm not going to say Man United is another free hit, because when we're fighting like we are at the moment, I don't think there can be such thing as a free hit.
No.
But for me, mate, it's the game after Man United, and especially given the form that Crystal Palace are in at the moment. They lost heavily to Leicester. They lost to Burnley the week before, and then it was that 4-0 loss to Liverpool, which I was speaking about earlier, came before that. That Crystal Palace game is one where if we win it, I think survival is more than on the cards. I think you can make an argument for it looking very likely. But if we lose it, then I mean, I don't want to put it all riding on one game, but if it's that Palace game afterwards is the one where if we win it, then if we lose it, it really is either end of the scale, isn't it, in terms of whether we think we'll end up being in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, and again, kind of touching on what I said earlier, it's we're the fact that for the past few weeks, and whenever we've chatted either on the podcast or just just personally, the fact we're going all Chelsea are beating Watford or whatever, it shouldn't, especially this late. It's killing my heart that we're having to rely on other teams. So if you were to say Villa would get 3 points from now until the end of the season, I'd be like, absolutely. But I'd tell you that there were 3 draws, not a win. And I think, looking at the table now, I believe we're on 27 points. I genuinely think 32 points keeps you up. That's how poor the league is. And I never thought I'd ever say that about a Premier League season. 32 points to keep you in the division is an absolute monstrosity. What happened to the Magic 40? But I know when there's such a big gap, especially at the top of the table as well, I guess it's no surprise that down the bottom everyone's still scrapping like they are. It's just trying, as you say, kind of trying to make sure you can find the goals, but we've not really at any point had like a prolific goal scorer or someone who's gone on a scoring run, like who's been red hot. I think we could say Grealish has been red hot, but a lot of his performances. I mean, he scored 7 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League this season. But a lot of Grealish's performances is where he's got these assists, or Wesley's got on the score sheet. I think Wesley's our 4th highest scorer of the season. He's not played since January, and with Grealish being our top, I think that should tell you everything you need to know about Villa. It's just you've got to hope that it can click, and whether it can click against Man United or not, I don't know. There was talk about Louis Barry playing. Obviously, he's featured no part in the squad, but I was really happy to see Indy play. Vasilev came on, ran around a bit, looked efficient. Obviously, there's not much a player like him can do. But when you've got, the likes of Mason Greenwood, who's having the game of his life against Bournemouth, and Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden, it's nice to see that, we're giving these young players a bit of a chance.
Yeah, that was good, mate. And that's what I want to see. I think that there's players that are just sort of on the bench to make up the numbers. And this is why Dean's voted against the 5-player rule. I mean, he cited that it was because he doesn't really think that we should change the rules midway through a season, and we all know it's bollocks. It's just because we haven't got the bench to compete, as we saw today. We haven't got the bench to compete with these top sides. If you're up against Liverpool or Man City and you give them the ability to make 5 substitutes, then it's going to make the game so much harder. And Indy coming on is a player that it's good to see, mate. I was pleased that Louis Barry wasn't in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I saw other people referencing Man United were giving Greenwood starts in the Europa League when he was 17, and Phil Foden was getting minutes at City when he was 17. But neither of those guys were making debuts in a side like Villa's against a side like Liverpool's. I mean, you can start your 17-year-olds, against Partizan Belgrade when you're Manchester United in the Europa League, or your AZ Alkmaar, no disrespect to Ron Vlaar. But you can't do that. Louis Barry, for me, throwing it in the position that Villa are in, and I mean, you can say all you like if you're Dean Smith, bringing him on, but if you're sending a 16-year-old lad, 16, 17, on against a side like Liverpool with and you can say to him, pressure's off, just go out and enjoy your game. But he's fully aware of the position that Villa are in right now. And you can't send 16-year-old strikers onto the pitch against Liverpool saying, going out and have fun. If you could grab a goal that keeps this massive club in the Premier League, then that would be great. Yeah. It's not. I believe that there may be a time for Louis Barry minutes this season. I do believe that. But today certainly wasn't it. But it was good to see Indy giving a run out, mate. It probably came a bit too late, and at that stage in the game, as I said, the game was gone because unfortunately, once you go 1-0 down to Liverpool at Anfield, especially when a side like Villa is where there's goals are so hard to come by at the moment. It was never really going to happen, and I did feel a bit sorry for the lads that came on after that, because I think if we bring on Samagol, for instance, before Liverpool score their first, then he can have a completely different impact on the game if we kept feeding him those counter attacks that we were getting. But look, I mean, it's frustrating. It's another one in the last column. It's not the one that we should have been winning. I don't really think Thursday's game is that either, to be honest with you. But given that I think it's Arsenal after Crystal Palace, if I'm not Arsenal or Everton, that Palace game is absolutely huge, man. And so, look, these are the games that if we aren't in the Premier League next season, you've just got to enjoy the fact that we're going to see Villa play up against the players that Liverpool have got. And I mean, it's a shame we're not at Villa Park to watch that Bruno-Pogba tandem, because that's been absolutely electric, and that's just so enjoyable to watch. And I don't think we're going to get anything against Manchester United, to be honest with you, mate. I think we've just got to go out there and put out a similar performance. But look, I'm going to sort of finish what I'm mentioning with this. These good performances against Liverpool mean nothing if we don't go and put in the same calibre performance and get a win against the likes of Palace. You might as well not bother.
You're absolutely right, but I think it's fair in saying that, despite this and what we've said, I think it's fair to say the tone of the podcast reflects a completely different outlook that we've faced the past few weeks, Dan. I think, we asked... I think when we've spoke, we've very much felt like we were down and out, but now we've got this ounce of optimism that we're clinging on to, or, ever so slightly, and in the hope that we can put this performance in against Crystal Palace, Manchester United, hopefully, and whoever. I think as long as I see Villa perform like that for the rest of the season, obviously I'm going to be absolutely gutted if we go down. Do not get my words mixed up, but I'd be able to say we went down with a bit of a fight, and I think that's the very, very minimum we can ask for. So I think that's probably a good note to end the podcast on, Dan. The Manchester City versus Southampton game is on now, so I won't keep you for too long. We'll watch some good football from both sides. But Dan, it's been great speaking to you as ever, and we're definitely feeling a bit better after the last few podcasts. And we'd like to thank you guys who've stuck with us through the podcast. I think the last podcast, Assistant to Regional Manager, has got like over 500 views now, which is amazing. We've not been getting them kind of views on the podcast since probably, around the promotion time last season. So we really do appreciate the support, you guys, and for listening. And any final words from yourself, Dan?
No, just look, I think, as I said, it's not time for... complete optimism. It's not time for complete desperation, but we did see a little bit of something out there from the Villa boys, and I think that the Man United game is going to be hard. That'll be quite telling to see just how much confidence is left in the dressing room, like the players and coaches keep saying. But look, we just got to try and keep going. I think the teams around us is just as bad as we are, mate, and so we just got to keep plugging on this one.
Absolutely. So if you guys did enjoy the podcast, hit the like button and comment your thoughts below. We're always interested in seeing what you guys have to say. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, any other podcast listening sites, please do like the podcast and subscribe and follow or whatever you can do on there, because it really does help us a lot. And we'll speak to you guys on Thursday evening. You'll probably hear us Friday morning, actually, after the Manchester United game. So like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.
Chester's essential to fulfilling this got potential. It's a main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang. Chester. He's the main leader of the gang now. Chester.